Our heroes have returned from the Rugby World Cup. I don't mean the Irish rugby team, I mean Eoin Sheahan. Eoin, how are you? Good morning to you.
You used the word hero plural there, I think.
Yeah,
you talking about yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have my end up. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. It's
I walked in this morning and I went, I'm absolutely fine, I don't have any jet lag at all. And 5 minutes ago I went, ooh, I think I've just got a little bit of delayed jet lag.
Yeah, I forgot that the power of the Off the Ball Studios coffee machine brings. It kind of dispels all jet lag in return for probably drinking poison.
I had given up coffee for a long time, but I've just had a double espresso because I am absolutely wrecked.
Back on the bandwagon.
Absolutely wrecked.
I don't find it too bad. I think if you're getting up early in the morning anyway, like, I mean, my alarm went off at 1 p.m. Japanese time today, and
You're like, happy days. So you just live on Japanese time.
There might be 1 or 2 days, especially near the end when the shackles came off, where 1 p.m. Japanese time was a common thing, especially on match days. So yeah, I'm fine. It's good. It's just an early morning. That's all.
I didn't quite realise just how late you were up filming the fan video. So what happens is the game finishes and then everybody gets back into town around midnight because all of our games were, well, most of our games were.
The last couple were 7 o'clocks.
And then you've got to go and find them.
Yeah.
And then you've got to go and find somewhere to edit it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to send it back.
Yeah.
And it all came back that night every time.
Every time, yeah. I was getting into a routine where it was 6 a.m. the next morning where it was getting uploaded. It was getting more and more complicated because if you have to travel around a big city to actually track people down, it's just a disaster. Whereas the first one, the one that, you know, it just happened by accident.
The breakout.
Yeah, the breakout. It just happened in the train station when I was going home. I was like, oh, there's nobody around here. And I think that first game was a bit earlier as well. I think that was a 4 o'clock in the afternoon kickoff. So I was done and dusted, uploaded by 2 or 3 o'clock that night, and then it became a routine.
Unfortunately, you'd set the templates, and it had to happen, and people demanded it. And so, like, you were finishing at 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah, it was 6 o'clock. So that was 10 o'clock back home. So you're getting that up. But then the worst thing was that you might have to go to an Ireland press conference.
The next day?
Yeah, but for the last couple, there was you got to lie in a small
day in between.
bit. Yeah, but sure, all you're doing is just sitting at a laptop editing. It's not like I was coal mining or anything like that. I'm not claiming to.
I know, it was late, but you're missing out on what they're all doing. Or are you drinking while you're doing it?
No, not drinking while I'm doing it, for sure. They say that you should, the old cliche, write drunk, edit sober sort of thing. And if my writing is actually filming people, then I couldn't do that because I had to edit sober. So, like, there was always a temptation. And, there, like, I mean, you started to see the same faces around and you started to communicate with them a bit. And there was always like, oh, sure, you'll come for one. And you think to yourself, this is potentially the best night of all time. And by extension, I will do no work for the next 48 hours, let alone these vital next 3 hours. So, no, I'd say discipline on that front.
Very good. So who was your favourite?
Of the fans?
Yeah.
Well, my favourite is Gav, who was referred to as an effing bullshitter by his mate in video number 1, appeared again in video number 2, and then was in constant communication with their crew who was travelling around Japan, because I needed to get Gav back on again, and finally got in touch with him on the last night when he was interviewed, and finally gave his one last up Cork, and it just it was funny. Like, the last video got quite a heap of negative reaction online, as things tend to get, and I don't think it was any worse than the other videos. I think if you hated the fan videos, that's fine, you can hate them all. But I think the last one just got extra hate because people like someone to blame. Yeah, we lost, and they were like,
it's their fault.
All this anger needs to go somewhere. It's the Irish fans' fault. So I found that very funny that people would kind of refer to them as celebrating defeat, which is absolute nonsense, to be quite honest with you. They weren't cheering when Bowden Barrett is going over for a try.
No.
They get disappointed, they leave the stadium, and they're like, well, that's really crap. Oh, hold on a minute, I just spent perhaps €1,200 on return flights to Japan. I'm in this amazing country, I'm on holidays. I'm actually going to go for a few drinks, and I might actually sing a few songs. But yes, they brought shame on the nation, according to a few sad people online.
It's the local culture to sing songs.
Yeah,
exactly. You have to try and implicate yourself somehow in Japan.
Well, yeah, they just did it outside the karaoke booth rather than inside the karaoke booth.
There's about 6 separate videos on YouTube which are all entitled Owen's Final Dispatch from Japan, and there are some nice comments on them. Obviously, nobody gets nice comments on YouTube, so fair play. Oisin Quinn, I really have enjoyed Owen's reports. Great lad for the content. I mean, that's correct.
That's the nice thing that actually has ever been said about me, a great lad for the content.
That should be your Twitter bio. Maxima Horo, Owen is a lovely person. Look forward to seeing more of him in the years ahead. Excellent presentation skills he has! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
That's super nice.
Kerry Starr, that's not you, that's the name.
No, that's my burner account.
All right, okay. Got to see the real ES over this month. Sound lad.
Yeah, I really did. Got to find myself. Yeah.
Hiding who you are really here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Kerry Starr.
It was only when you had Silence, Cunning and Exile that you were able to reveal the true girth of your personality.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the word I would have used to describe my personality as well.
Rhinoceros. Okay, so it's spelled Ryan, R-Y-A-N, Rhinoceros. You've been a pleasure to watch, Eoin. Sure we will see you as a commentator and opinionator, is that a word, for many more years, and I look forward to it. Stay lucky and safe travels.
Thank you very much, Rhinoceros.
An opinionator.
You're the nicest rhinoceros ever.
Why do you think you had no breakout when you were just studio-based? I mean, is this like what we have to do now? You can be like broadcasting live from anywhere in the country?
I don't know, it's just because anybody could have become a great opinionator if you're based in Japan, is what I would have thought. Anybody can be a great opinionator when you've got people like Gav to interview after games, is what I would say. So, but thank you all the same, Rhinoceros.
Danny B says, whatever you got paid for your Japan trip was good value. You got paid £6 million. What are you talking about? There was so much brilliant content. Interviews with Justin Marshall, Shane Williams, the sumo interview with John Gunning, the food reviews, the drunk fan segment, the travel reviews, the questions at press conferences. It gave a great context to the tournament as it was going on. Cheers. Your man's also got a burner account called Danny B.
Yeah, Danny B. That's and then I have one called Banny D as well. So I've got a number of burners. That one in particular was my finest comment.
Obviously, somebody paid a lot of attention to it. John Gunning, that was one of my highlights. That was
it feels like a long time ago. I met him a couple of times since. So he was working at all the World Cup games as a photographer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think for the Japan Times maybe, but he has his own website, Inside Sport Japan as well, kind of an English language-based one. And yeah, it's interesting because at the first weekend, he was the first person I met, kind of giving me advice on you can actually take out more money from the cash machine. And I was running to an ATM. He was like, you're going to be safe in this country, telling me how to get to the Irish press conferences and stuff like that. And yeah, just really sound guy. Fellow moved over there for the 2002 World Cup, or not moved over, went over as a supporter for the 2002 World Cup.
Never came
home. I was like, I like the sound of this. And yeah, never came home. And when he was being interviewed, he was like, yeah, news talk off the ball, they were not a thing when I was living there. I've vaguely heard of them, but yet here's this man with a big Roscommon accent who'd left the country at a time when it was a vastly different place, you know. So, fascinating guy, and he was kind of in and around all the games, and I think he's going to keep going to all the games.
You should get him on before the final.
Yeah, 100%. See if he's brushed up his rugby knowledge. He'll be the first person to say he hasn't covered much rugby before. But
I mean, about the whole experience, because certainly your opening dispatches were this World Cup has not landed really locally just yet, but as time went on, it did.
Yeah, we were and that was thanks to us. I really do think that game in Shizuoka did kind of transform everything. It just was noticeable after that moment that the Japanese fans were suddenly not there for this novel thing that was happening on their doorstep. They were there to watch this amazing team that existed on their doorstep, who also happened to be playing in their home tournament. So it was just a fantastic opportunity for all of them to be able to kind of go on this crest of a wave. And almost kind of, as a secondary point to that, I think it was kind of proved with the amount of Irish that actually got into the stadium for Ireland against New Zealand, because the Japanese fans were actually like, no, I do want to see the All Blacks as a rugby fan, but actually my view on rugby has changed. I'm now a fan of Japanese rugby first, and then kind of a passing fan of the novelty of the All Blacks second, and that's how so many Irish people got to get their trade. So it was mad to see that escalation, and that's what it was. Even just kind of in a place that had never really been touched by rugby before in Hiroshima, and just to see the place kind of stand still for Japan against Samoa, and the guy behind the bar and restaurant I was in, he didn't have much English, but he had the phrase bonus point, and I was like, all right. So, that's kind of the extent to which it had penetrated.
The viewership figures for one of the games, was either the Ireland game or the Scotland game, was bigger than the viewership figures for the Football World Cup
the Scotland game
2002. So you can imagine how big football is huge in Japan. I mean, I don't know if there was ever a Game 7 of a World Series that they decided to fly everybody over to Japan. That would probably get bigger viewership figures, fair enough. But it was 50 million people watched it, which is a massive number and that was before the semi-final. I haven't seen semi-final figures yet, but it clearly did have an impact.
Yeah, for sure. You mean quarter-final figures?
Quarter-final figures, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Japan, South Africa could have even topped that again, but that's incredible. On their home turf, they had the World Cup final in 2002, a truly worldwide sport, the biggest sport in the world, and still the rugby got a bigger figure in the pool stages. Yeah,
with, obviously, Brazil playing particularly well. So, Graham Jones says, good content out there, mate. As an England supporter, it's been quite enjoyable listening to the slow, deathward spiral and machinations of Ireland rugby, mixed in with hearing about cookie Japanese foodstuffs and other eccentricities.
The deathward spiral really was something. I'm trying to think, did we start? It was Scotland, really. That was the game when we put ourselves in a position to spiral out of control.
We did.
Even before that, it was is Twickenham real?
There was the fluky bounce that gave us the second, third try. against Scotland, we're like, oh, look, even the bounce of the ball is going away this time. No.
It was Stockdale, wasn't it? Or no, Stockdale went through for an opportunity. I think he passed it off, didn't he? And it was like the ball is bouncing for Jacob Stockdale like it was in 2018. We are back.
Just go and put that last one back up there. Sorry, no, that was it. So there was another one. Sorry, some bad ones as well here. Shame on Eoin Sheahan for including Sweet Caroline multiple times. Just awful. There's a reason for that, though. They play it in all the stadiums. They
do play it in all the stadiums, yes. Thank you for giving me a reason there.
The stadium experience was great crack, I have to say, as like somebody who's quite cynical about all that. There's proper karaoke, because obviously karaoke is such a big thing in Japan. They put proper karaoke up for like pre-match build-up, and the whole crowd sings because that's what they do. It's like not a, if it was an Irish audience, you're putting it up, muttering into their... and they also had the drums that you could play. That was class. Did you see that?
I did see that. So it was it was like drum cam, and then a bong would appear here and a bong would appear there, and you just got to bang the bongos, really, and it was pretty self-explanatory. I thought the match day experience was unbelievable. Like, it's not as far as, say, going to an NFL or an NBA game, or to say especially like the Super Bowl in terms of the theatre, but I think that was kind of done deliberately because they know that perhaps traditional rugby fans might not be prepared for that, but they went as far as they could possibly do it. Every game felt like an absolutely gigantic occasion. Everything was off to a tee. Like, you've got to credit Japan for that, you've got to credit World Rugby for that, the people behind it all. It just felt huge, it felt seismic, no matter how, even the small stadium that Ireland played Samoa in, every moment felt like a World Cup game, packed stadiums everywhere. And
World Rugby did say this isn't a once-in-a-lifetime thing, we're coming back here.
They would be stupid not to.
You could see it happening in the next 20 years.
Imagine if we were like thinking to ourselves now, so 4 years' time, we're up. How are we going to follow that?
Like, you got 4 years to do it. And also everybody would be on the island. So there would be... It's funny, I didn't expect there to be much of a World Cup post-match feeling, but there was in certain areas. Like, everybody headed for the same areas. All the rugby fans seemed to head for the same areas after matches. Yeah. Issel Cody, good morning to you, Issel. Well, at Nathan Murph will have serious competition for awards season next year. I think Eoin Sheahan put in harder work than most teams in Japan. Some more ones that aren't very nice. Shame on Eoin Sheahan I did that one, sorry. Gyron the Grey says, Eoin Sheahan looks like Captain America before the super soldier serum. Jesus, somebody get that kid a sandwich. He had loads of food. He had loads of good food.
I did actually.
Rubbish stuff as well.
My diet was horrific.
7-Eleven chicken nuggets.
And sandwiches from 7-Eleven. And yeah, diet was... But, like, I mean, when you got kind of a couple of hours together and you're like, okay, I'm going to go find a nice restaurant, obviously it was pretty good, but I'm dying for a bit of fruit.
Fruit?
Fruit. I didn't eat much fruit.
Right, you got scurvy.
Yeah, I might have got scurvy, but hopefully I've got enough of a vitamin C intake before I went to actually last me until my next dose of vitamin C, which is hopefully coming soon.
Yeah,
maybe
so that's what you're looking forward
to
most. That was my question next.
Fruit, probably, yeah, but fruit, like, I mean, that's it. That's the only thing I kind of miss. So it's just dying for something healthy at certain moments.
Surely you'll make the shortlist for the Pulitzer with this piece, and that was on your Sheehan's sushi segment from Beppu in Japan. So, well, people are clever, aren't they? And you're now a sushi connoisseur?
I would say so.
Will you be eating sushi again?
I would say sushi connoisseurs will look up to me and my kind of performances. I shall certainly be eating sushi again, but only the best, really. The Dublin sushi scene, I know, is thriving. The Japanese food scene in Ireland is thriving. So
it's pretty good, yeah.
That is no coincidence.
They haven't invited you around to, like, do a tasting kind of as a follow-up?
Not yet, but then again, I am like the most honest food reviewer out there, so...
That'd be danger.
It'd be hugely dangerous, especially given my taste buds are more kind of astute than most.
All of a sudden?
No, I think you could get born with astute taste buds.
No, I think you just woke them up.
I woke them up, yes. Good point. It was all the...
The sweat.
The Pocari sweat. I actually have a bottle of Pocari sweat in my bag today, yeah. Kind of living off that, sipping away on it.
Did you ever check what was in it? A friend of mine went to the World Cup in 2002 and came back with diabetes. So you wanted to check that you haven't just been drinking like gallons and gallons of liquid sugar. Do you think you might be?
Well, it's so unbelievably delicious that I'd be very surprised if it didn't have a humongous
it might be nothing but sugar.
Yeah, potentially, because it's gorgeous. It's like that is my Captain America super serum, Pocari Sweat.
There was, of course, another homecoming yesterday. The Irish rugby team and Joe Schmidt were at Dublin Airport. Off the ball, Shane Hannon caught up with Joe Schmidt. Have a look.
You have a rhythm, and if the rhythm works, you want to keep adding, but you know, it's if you completely, not completely, but if you do change what you do, I think it's about doing it with a balance, because that rhythm is a bit of a comfort blanket for players in their preparation. And one of the things in Japan that was very difficult, I think if you have a look at the games that were played last weekend, I think the French, they win for sure if they don't get the red card. They're 19-10 up at the time, and they're outplaying Wales at the time. I think the English outplayed the Australians, the All Blacks outplayed us. Any of those teams who got the weekend off, I think it was a massive boon, and it gave them that preparation window. We flew back into Tokyo kind of late in the evening on the Monday, so we trained on the Tuesday and the Thursday, and we had a few knocks and niggles from the Samoans. That, I don't know if you've seen them up close and personal, but they hit hard, and you know, I do think that we didn't quite have the same rhythm that the All Blacks, and talking to their coaching staff, it was the same, and some of their players. So if you can get as much, retain that really positive rhythm going into matches, I do think it makes a difference. And we changed that during the Six Nations, and we changed it because we wanted to be really good in the World Cup, and we probably would have been better off just to stay with our week-to-week focus, to live in the moment and play the tournament we were in. And if I had my time over, I'd probably change that.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's what's coming up. Going to do the sports pages now. Going to talk football with Eamon Delaney around about 8:05. Spurs are back. Never doubted them, or are they? That's the first question we'll be asking. Loads more to get our teeth stuck into. If you have any questions for him about last night's football, or indeed tonight's football, or any of the other stories that are happening, you can hit us up on the hashtag OTBAM. It's 7:47 this morning. Mike Tyndall's going to join us at 8:30, talking more Rugby World Cup, obviously. Sports news with Phil, around about 9:05, and then Phil's picks at 9:15. You can tweet us using the hashtag OTBAM. We are, of course, OTBAM, Off the Ball Sports Breakfast Show, and we're with you every morning from 7:30 until 9:30 across a multitude of platforms. Best place to get us these days as a radio show is just on the Go Loud app. You can get us, of course, in video form on youtube.com/Off the Ball. Time for the papers. I'm going to start with the Star, and the back page headline here is Top Potch. Rhymes with notch. Spurs show backing for Boss by blasting 5. So a 5-star performance last night. Parrott gets 4. Troy Parrott's 4-goal haul inspired Spurs to a 9-2 romp in yesterday's UEFA Youth League defeat of Red Star Belgrade. And Grand Slam for Mihal, still looking great. Twins Owen and Liam Wilkinson proudly display their trophy with their granddad, retired GA broadcasting legend Mihal O'Mara-Hartig. The 89-year-old was at Croke Park to watch the talented duo help Gael Skull Brian Barova Swords to see off St Bridget's in Colester. And then it says here Joe Schmidt hits back. He was asked about evolution. He was heavily criticised in the wake of Saturday's defeat and has been accused of making Ireland an easy target when the serious business began. I dispute those comments massively. We created plenty of chances. Even in the Six Nations, we scored more tries than the winner. We didn't play as well as we could. I have to take responsibility for that. If I had my time over, I might do it a little bit differently.
I don't know. Darcy's making the point, Gordon Darcy in the Irish Times today, that because they lost their first game so comprehensively in the Six Nations, that just completely destroyed the opportunity for more experimentation.
It didn't, though. Like, if you've decided you're going to use the whole tournament to experiment, the defeat in the first game actually means you should do more experimentation because the competition's over. You're not going to win now that you've lost at home against England. The Grand Slam is gone, Triple Crown is gone, more than likely the tournament is gone. So experiment away, because you now literally have nothing else to lose. You've just been hockeyed. What's to lose? It's actually the opposite of
public face, opinion.
We didn't get it back. Anyway. And there's another Paul Lennon story here about the FAI may not be able to appoint a new CEO until next May or June as the crisis-ridden organisation's reform strategy becomes a saga. They had hoped to have a permanent successor in place during the first few months of next year, but it might be until the middle of the year. It doesn't say. It's down to the fact that the four new independent FAI directors who are due to join the board won't happen until December, because it was supposed to happen 10 days ago. Those were certainly, they were supposed to be announced, but there's been another delay. I don't know what the current delay is, but it's not great.
Just Just on that Troy Parrott story, he's starting to look like David Clifford in a second year minor at this point, where he's definitely kind of grown beyond his age grade, and it's just looking like the big kid now, where people really just can't handle him. Unbelievable. His goals are up online, I think, if anybody wants to check them out. Back page of The Sun is sunny and stare. That is tab of the morning to you. They lead way as City and Spurs both hit 5, so Sterling bagging a City hat-trick. Spurs Sun doubling up as the Prem sides ran riot last night. And that's The Sun for you.
I hadn't realised Kieran Kingston has his backroom team completed at this stage. Listen to this. Pat Mulcahy, a much beloved Cork defender from that team. Brian Corcoran, an absolute legend. And Chrissy O'Connor. That's not a bad team. Cork are coming. I would be concerned about the Cork hurlers if I was hurler from any of the other counties. I think they're absolutely coming. We'll get more on that FAI story for you a little bit later on. I got it wrong is the simple back page headline on the Daily Mail about the homecoming. And so James Murray has the piece here. Maybe we built it into something that became a self-consuming monster. We didn't play as well as we could. I've got to take responsibility for that. And look, you know, it'd be nice to hear a full sit-down, hour-long, explain in detail how you got it wrong. But it would be more important for the IRFU to have that debrief and go back and see exactly what you could do differently.
Yeah, like I think if we really do reflect on the Joe Schmidt era as the greatest head coach that Ireland have ever seen, then really to follow that through, and I said it before, to the final conclusion of that is really you judge this extremely harshly. I think if you really want to make a success of the Joe Schmidt era, you've got to really focus in on how he failed so desperately at the end of his era, because he got us to a point where getting hammered by the All Blacks is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Getting hammered by the All Blacks was previously an acceptable result in Irish rugby. So if we do really think that Joe Schmidt took us to this place, then this needs to be seen as, to a point, to a bit of a travesty that it was last weekend in terms of the Irish performance, in terms of the underperformance, and in terms of what 2019 has been. The back page of the Mirror is rout of this world. Kane and Sterling go goal crazy. And watching brief, Joe Schmidt looking forward to enjoying his rugby again in front of the TV with a glass in his hand.
The back page of The Guardian is the Spurs players celebrating. Son and Kane carve Red Star apart as Spurs belatedly breathe life into their season with flowing 5-0 Champions League display. Bear in mind, Red Star Belgrade have been really appalling away from home in recent years, so we'll see exactly what the crack is. And then, I mean, it's kind of a nothing story midweek. Spies are watching England, says Jones. So the England team have Prince Harry's former security detail running security for them. I didn't see very heavy Irish security around. Don't know, sorry, I wasn't around the team, so maybe they did have. But apparently, they spotted a red light in a tower block overlooking the training pitch, and that's a suggestion that they were being spied on. It could just have been a Japanese fan, said Eddie Jones, but really, is the implication that it was a Japanese fan, or is this an implication that something more sinister is going on? That the terrorised New Zealand rugby architecture, the apparatus, is somehow going to get their hands on this tape. That's really the undercurrent here, isn't it?
Well,
because they desperately need to know what England are doing in training this week that's going to be different from anything that England have put down on tape.
Before we bury Eddie Jones here, there's a great opportunity for us to use this as an excuse for Ireland. So, according to, it's also on the back page of the London Times this morning, I should say, New Zealand spying on us, says England. So, England's base this week, Ark's Uriyasu Park in Tokyo Bay, is the most exposed of any day of use this World Cup, with 20-storey apartment blocks rising high above the purple and white privacy tarpaulin that surrounds the pitch. Uriyasu Park, do you want to have a guess at what team trained there in the build-up to playing the All Blacks recently?
Ireland?
Ireland.
Oh.
Were Ireland being spied on in the most open training ground that exists in Japan? That's all I'm saying.
Then you had to crush us from the get-go.
They knew how to crush us from the get-go. Joe Schmidt was spied on.
We had a new move off the very first play.
Yeah, and they knew exactly how to defend it. It was actually almost as if they just stood still and just absorbed it like a sponge. But no, it was down to the spying. Ireland were spied on, fact.
Yeah. What about the sleeper cell of South African rugby that we had living with us for the previous time when Razzie and Felix Jones were actually working for Ireland?
Well, that's the thing.
That worked out really well.
That's why I fully believe that had that sleeper cell got to put their plan in action against Ireland on Sunday,
they might have crushed us.
By an even bigger margin.
No, not a bigger margin. It couldn't be bigger. It was a record.
It really could be, though.
Oh, Telegraph. We've been spied on, say England. Eddie Jones ramping up the mind games in the build-up to their game this weekend. Oh, how I wish we had some mind games to be ramping up. And high five, it's Harry Kane. He's back. And how Chelsea owner spends his days apart from the club he loves. This is a headline about Roman Abramovich, who, of course, I think still isn't allowed in, or is he? Did he get access?
I don't think so. I think he's somewhere down in Croatia at the moment.
He's exiled. He's on the boat. He's on the Succession boat. Is anybody watching? Are you watching Succession?
No, I am going to get into it, though.
Oh, it's sensational. There's like, the final episode has this massive, giant boat, which is like, it looks like it must be the most expensive boat in the world, because there can't be anything that's bigger, that's privately owned. Like, it's big, it's as big as like a naval ship. And Roman Abramovich has one too.
The Irish Times leads with Gordon Darcy's column. To get up off the floor, Ireland must dig deep into what went wrong. So he wonders, with absolutely no insight to the inner workings, he admits, of a tight-knit group, did they become too close? Can there be free commentary between peers if the working relationship is blurred by friendship? So sliding doors, this is something that perhaps you brought up before as well. Joey does not leave Leinster. Joey Carbery doesn't leave Leinster. This is a kind of potential hypothetical from Gordon Darcy. So Stuart Lancaster conjures up an attacking strategy that was less about numbers on backs and more about ensuring Sexton and Carbery keep defences guessing. So basically Joey Carbery at 15. Joe Schmidt, it provides so irresistible that he adds to his creative spark to the new dual threat, and Ireland's attack becomes as unpredictable as it is deadly. That could have been the impetus for Joe Schmidt to actually transform or come up with a better game plan or kind of an alternative game plan this year, if he could have seen something in his own provinces that was doing the trick.
Right. I mean, that was exactly what Leinster wanted at the time. They wanted him to stay. And they could have put him in the team straight away. Like, there would have been ample opportunity for us to try this. We got to the point where we tried Robbie Henshaw at fullback, who hasn't played fullback since his Connacht days, and even then it was very rare that he was playing compared to the amount of times that he played centre. So they clearly wanted to give themselves an option of somebody else as a receiver, but we never once looked at that in an Ireland context, even though Leinster, who, bear in mind, had Stuart Lancaster, who's clearly a brilliant coach, saying this is what we should be doing here, we should be trying this out. And we didn't listen to the coaches. Like, I think part of the problem is as well that you have this top-down system where the people who have access day-to-day to the Ireland players, their opinion, I'm sure it's listened to, but it wasn't acted on in this particular instance where, you know, Leinster had created this player and saw a future for him and wanted to create something which would be very different from what we have, and Ireland went, no, we just need another 10, we're going to do this, and we've decided this is what's going to happen.
Carbery wanted to be a 10 as well, though, didn't he?
But, like, I mean, he says that, right?
If he's playing like Bowden Barrett, though, he probably wants to be a 15. And
Well,
if he's
what if, you know, I'd say Bowden Barrett probably wants to be a 10.
Yeah. But he also wants to be a World Cup winner, and he wants to be part of the best attack in the world. So I did get the sense, though, from Carbery, though, like that there is a clear hierarchy in terms of his love for rugby connected to his position. Like, almost scoffing at the idea of being a scrum half or a 12 when it was brought up over the course of the World Cup. Carbery himself, like, I mean, because he was essentially the sub-scrum half for what game was it, the Russia game?
Yeah.
When Murray was out, I think. So, like, I just think that when it comes
But at the time, right?
Okay, so at the time it's different.
Yeah, at the
because
time...
he's found his love for 10 this year as well, let's not forget.
Yeah, and, I mean... The track record of Irish players who were centres who became wingers, or who were wingers who became centres, were like, well, no, I'm playing this specific position because that's what, like, I won something at some underage level, and then 15 caps in, they're like, I'm actually world class in this position. This is great. So, like, the need of the player and the need of the national team can sometimes not be aligned. I don't know. I think it's an excellent point, and I think it's the type of thing that now we're never going to see because that moment has passed. But we're not a country that has ever really had and taken the two great 10s that we have and put them in the team together to see what happens. Every other country in the world has tried this, and frequently they've either used it for a long period of time or they've had it in their back pocket when they need it.
And we're going to see it in full flow this weekend. Ford and Farrell up against Moonga and Barrett, and Sexton-Carbery potentially could have been an unbelievable option for Ireland. Like, that could have been... The question might not have been Joe Schmidt identifying that Sexton was coming off his peak. and therefore perhaps removing him or taking minutes back and kind of replacing him. The identification would have been that he needs help in his backline. We need to reinvent Sexton coming off his World Player of the Year calendar year. We need to actually transform his game a little bit or give him a bit more help, because not only have Ireland put themselves in the crosshairs to be figured out by everybody as the best team in the world in 2018, there's also individuals that put themselves into the crosshairs. Jonathan Sexton is target number one because he is World Rugby Player of the Year. So, like, all of this is just so easy to say in hindsight, but it is definitely a lesson for the future. It is definitely a lesson that if Ireland get themselves into a position 1 or 2 years out from a World Cup where they look like world beaters, it is just so far away from the summit when it comes to success in the biggest tournament of all.
Yeah. I think, though, the key thing is that you've got multiple ways of doing things, that you're not just a single prototype of play. And it was interesting over the course of the tournament that Schmidt was asked about what's his philosophy. His philosophy is to try and win games. Essentially, he was like, I don't have a philosophy. I respond to what the opposition are going to do, and I build a game plan that's going to beat them, which is like what some of the greatest coaches in any sport in history have always done. They've been able to beat you whatever way you were going to... Because most teams aren't evolved to the point that they can do a variation of things to you. Most teams have a very simple, we've got these good players, we're going to use those good players to do the things they're best at, and we're going to defend like hell. In any sport, that tends to be what happens. But the great teams and the great coaches are like, well, if you do that, I'm going to just attack your weakness. And I know how to do that because I've given all of my players all of the available information that they are required to make decisions in a short space of time that are going to allow them to do that. We didn't seem to get to that point, really. We seemed to actually have a style. Like, despite what he said, we did seem to have a very specific way of playing that required us to win collisions and that required us to have high-intensity pressure and great line speed. And if any element of that was missing, we lost games. And when the form disappeared, we lost a load of games. So I think that the key lesson is to make sure that you've got multiple styles of play and that you're able to go into them. And that if we were, like, you know, at one stage it looked like we might be about to try Carbery in the centre over the course of the tournament, and then it didn't happen. You're like, well, I mean, I wouldn't have been against it. I just think that we could have tried it 18 months ago. We could have tried it last year. We could have tried it at Leinster for a season and gone, let's see how this works.
Yeah, like if you're going to have control over the provinces,
what's the point of it?
Yeah, at least have that control in terms of...
especially when they want to do it.
Tactically influencing, yeah.
They're saying to you, look, we think he's actually a fullback. Let's do this.
Is that the light we need to be looking at now in terms of 2023? The guy who... I don't want to give Stuart Lancaster too much credit here. He's not the guy who identified Carbery as a potential 15. I'm sure there was other coaches who said it, like Graham Henry spotted him as an ex-potential world-class player. But the cohort within Leinster that exists as potential future Ireland coaches is 1 and 2 men. It's like Leo Cullen and Stuart Lancaster. Like, should there not be some sort of succession plan put in place right now that, with a view to 2023, if Andy Farrell is a success, you're getting the band back together. You're getting Farrell and Lancaster back together. And if Andy Farrell is a disaster, you've got Stuart Lancaster lined up as your next Ireland head coach. That, like, Farrell gets a 2-year stay of execution no matter what goes wrong, because I think he probably deserves that, because the part of me kind of feels a little bit of sympathy for him picking up the pieces now. Granted, his defence got absolutely slaughtered last weekend, to perhaps try something new. If he's trying new things over the next 2 years, I think Ireland fans will give him a bit of forgiveness.
He's got a clean slate, really, I think. As a head coach, he's got a clean slate. It wasn't his team, it wasn't his philosophy, it wasn't his training style. He was the defence coach, and granted, they had a really bad day, but, like, they've had good days in the past, so...
But Stuart Lancaster is the best coach on the island of Ireland, working in the island of Ireland right now. Like, I really believe that. Why they would not perhaps be looking at him now, thinking next World Cup, France, he could potentially be involved in the Ireland
setup. Because he could get a head coaching job in the meantime.
And then it's up to us to ensure that that is preempted and that we see that coming. Like, we missed a lot of things coming in this World Cup. Let's not make the same mistakes. And when it comes to personnel, let's not make the same mistakes. Losing Razzie Erasmus was kind of an uncontrollable, because he's South African and there was this patriotic call to arms. England aren't coming back for Lancaster.
Things you've missed, Owen, while you were away? Have you heard of a kid called Aaron Connolly?
I've heard just about him, yeah. I was actually on live with Nathan when he scored his brace against Spurs, and they do this thing on the Saturday show now where they play some music whenever an Irish person scored. So there was a lot of tunes going. I can't remember where I was, but
what were the tunes?
I can't even remember now.
Supermax and Pat McDonough kicked up a bit of a storm in Galway.
Heard about this.
A couple of statements.
I saw one of the statements.
A few broadsides fired at the county board.
The beef is real, I guess you could say, because Supermax beef is real as well.
Hey.
Use that line?
No, and you're the first one.
Oh, Jesus.
I can't believe it. We've missed you on.
It's straight. It doesn't get frozen.
A bit of trouble in Mayo, which has a cast of characters that has now extended to Mike Ashley, maybe or maybe not.
Okay, you're going to have to explain this one to me.
Well, I don't know them. I don't fully understand it myself. There's a brilliant documentary to be done by somebody out there on this guy who is bankrolling Mayo at the minute. He's got a colourful past, and he's got loads of money. And
Tim O'Leary, it's been said into my ear.
And it's worth doing a bit of digging about and just Google him. He's got a very interesting story, and I think what the hell's going to happen in Mayo is going to be one of the great off-season. It's going to be up Holmes and Kennelly-esque, the off-season, in terms of like the amount of stuff that we hear about Mayo football over the next 4 or 5 months.
Funny how Mayo and Galway tend to get themselves into these situations. Are we expecting an Elvery's statement over the next couple of weeks? Is it on Galway's level?
I think they should be happy enough with how things are being run. I don't know if they are or not. Like I would, because they're the Situ sponsor, and it's obviously a great sponsorship deal for them. So, a shoe broke through the 2-hour marathon record.
Yeah, I heard about this as well.
The magic shoes.
Yeah.
We all celebrated. Oh, how we celebrated! Tremendous feat of engineering.
And Salazar got banned.
Salazar got banned, yeah.
And a lot of people couldn't finish the marathon in Doha.
It was a bit hot.
Very hot.
They moved the Tokyo Marathon for the Olympics as well, because it's the middle of stuff. Aidan Goff says, you missed Owen Murchan, but so did every other Kerryman.
It's way too raw. It's way too raw.
Where did you watch the game?
Missed the first 20 minutes because I had to get back to my Airbnb because the bar, Geronimo's Shop Bar in Roppongi, believe it or not, was not a great sports bar.
Right.
Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
Geronimo's Shop Bar, fool me once and all that sort of thing. So I did get approached by somebody saying you were bad-mouthing my bar a couple of days ago. This was like at the end of the World Cup, and I was bad-mouthing Geronimo Shop Bar at the start of the World Cup.
Right.
So they don't forget in Geronimo Shop Bar if you slag off their sporting facilities. But there was a GEA Go stream that was buffering terribly, so I just went home.
What else have you missed since you've been away since September the 12th? What are we at now? The 23rd of October. That was a nice trip. If you think anything that Owen has missed, tweet us here at Off The Ball with hashtag OTB AM. Jimmy McCullough says the old team are back. Get in. I meant Ger and Eoin as opposed to the rugby team. Finally, Den and Angie, Jack and Vera, Sevi and Ole, and Kilban and Mora. Normality has returned. Owen is back. No offence, fill-ins.
Says
Jonathan Kennedy.
That is
Morning, Johnny.
Morning, Jonathan. That is another thing I've missed. Kilban on ice.
Hasn't started yet.
Hasn't started. Okay, good.
You should follow his Instagram account though, because he made it public recently enough. He's all about those Instagram likes now.
So Maguire the dog has been replaced by a pair of skates.
Maguire's the star of the show. Yeah.